Chapter 1, beginning at verse 18. Hear the word of God. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. May the Lord add his blessing to the reading of his holy word. Let us pray. Lord, we pray for wisdom this morning. We pray that your Spirit would grant us wisdom and understanding of your word, both the Old Testament and the New Testament. We pray that you would bring these words to life. Speak them to our hearts. Open our eyes so that we might understand your word more clearly. That way, Lord, we can draw those words in and allow them to have an impact on our characters. Through your Spirit, your word can change and empower our lives. That is what we ask this morning, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Messages that have become ever present in today's world, whether they be voice messages on your phone at home, or whether they be Facebook messages on the internet, or text messages on your cell phone. I'll be sitting in the living room watching a very important television show like The Wheel of Fortune or something like that. And I'll hear a ding, 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 ding. There'll be several dings. I'll say, what in the world's going on? And my wife will say, that's just my daughters and my daughter-in-law texting me, texting each other. We've got a group text going on. Every time they send out a text, there's a ding. With 4 women, that's a lot of dings. Of course, we don't want to miss a message. I'm forgetful. Sometimes I will forget to check my phone messages at home, and I will think to myself, oh no, I haven't checked my phone messages for 3 days. I hope somebody didn't go into the hospital. I hope somebody didn't send me a prayer request that needed to go in the bulletin. And so it's very important for pastors to check all of their messages. In God's great wisdom, God gave us this capacity to receive and send messages. Giving us this level of intelligence was very important to God. Now, why was that? Is it because God wants to communicate to us? Is it because God is sending us messages and he wanted to equip us to receive those messages? Well, I think the writer of Psalm 19 truly believed that. Let's listen to his words again. Psalm 19, 1 and 2. He says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. And then he goes on in the next 2 verses to clearly define these messages. He says, they have no speech, they use no words, no sound is heard from them, yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. So the psalmist is saying that God sends us these messages through all that he has created. They don't come in the form of text that we can read. They don't come in the form of any spoken particular language. But yet we have the intelligence to receive and to understand these messages by simply observing God's creation around us. The starry night sky, the majestic mountains. If you've ever been to the ocean, you stand on the beach and you just look out at the waves crashing against the shore. All of God's creation speak to us of God's glory and God's power and God's creative energy. But God even went a step further. God did not want to limit us to just understanding His glorious creation and His glorious nature through observing creation. God wanted a relationship with us. He wanted to go deeper than that. He wanted to teach us right from wrong. He wanted to teach us good from evil. He wanted to open up our eyes, our minds, our hearts to the depths of God's love and kindness and compassion. And so to do this, God needed to speak more directly to us, and He did that through people who had drawn close to Him. He did that through the prophets of old. He spoke to Moses, and He gave Moses instruction. He gave Moses the statutes, the laws for the people. He spoke to prophets like Samuel and Isaiah and Jeremiah. And so the psalmist goes on to talk about how God has reached to us in a relationship by giving us this precious word, these written words that teach us. Psalm 19, 7 and 8. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. So God has blessed us with this ability to receive these messages, to look at creation and understand that God is our powerful creator. He has spoken His word to us. We now have it in written form in the Scriptures, and we can study that word and grow in our lives spiritually. The psalmist tells us that as we grow, we will become wiser, we will become more joyful, we will become refreshed. And so God gets our attention through all of these things, through these words written by the prophets, through our relationship with Him as we grow in our understanding of God's Word. All of these things come together. So we receive all these messages from the Lord, and all of these messages God has sent us has led us up to the message of the cross. What is the message of the cross? This is what the Apostle Paul said about the message of the cross. 1 Corinthians 1:18. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Now clearly not all people receive and understand the messages that God sends out to us. For example, an atheist will stand up and look at the night sky, the starry sky above him, look at the majestic mountains around him, go to the ocean and see the ocean waves, and the atheist says, all this is random. We're just a big accident. I don't believe in God. I believe I'm an accident. With the very breath and life that God has given him, he proclaims that there is no God. And so the atheist does not get it. All these messages that God sends his way through the creation, he just doesn't get it. He refuses to believe those clear messages. Something similar happens when we are presented with the message of the cross. People will say, "Oh, the cross is foolishness." And you see the cross everywhere. It's a very popular decoration. I know you've noticed this. That you see the cross everywhere. People use it for decorations at home and wear it around their neck, tattoo it on their bodies. The cross is very popular, but the message of the cross is not very popular. That is what people have a hard time with. When confronted with the message of the cross, the people will laugh it off. Now that's very ironic because most people embrace the messages that the world sends them, and they'll listen intently to the message that the world sends them. They'll sit in front of the television set, watch a commercial very intently and say, "Wow, I need that product. I need that new Chevy." They'll sit intently and watch their favorite television series. It's a whole hour long, and they won't miss a minute of that television series. So the world is sending out messages, and they listen intently to it, but they ignore the message of the cross. They laugh at the message of the cross. Now why is that? I think perhaps it's because the messages that the world sends appeal to our human nature. They appeal to our desire to be selfish. For example, the world's message says this: look out for number one. Put yourself first, and you'll get ahead in this world. The world's message is, if it feels good, do it. Go out and indulge yourself. Go experience the pleasures of the world. The world says image is everything. Make sure you look good. Make sure you keep your image up, because if you do, you'll get ahead in this world. The world says you've got to be ruthless if you want to get ahead. This world is full of competition. Don't be afraid to step on people to work your way up. The world says, show me the money. Money and status is where it's at. If you have enough money, if you have enough status, then you can do what you want to do. You can be free. The world says, I did it my way. Nobody told me what to do. I made my own decisions. I forged my own way in this world. I did it my way. So the messages of the world go out, and they're very enticing because they approve and they applaud the selfish nature that we have. Those are the messages that we like to embrace. However, this worldly wisdom runs contrary to the wisdom of the cross. God used the cross to overturn worldly wisdom. In Roman times, the cross was the most despised, humiliating, and torturous form of judgment and execution. It was hated. In God's wisdom, God took this cruel, despised instrument of death and said, from this cross, I am going to bring life. Through the cross, I am going to raise up a new model of understanding God and the path to abundant life. 1 Corinthians 1, 22 through 25. Jews demand signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles, but to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. Paul said that there were many Jews who see the cross as a stumbling block. There are Gentiles who call the cross foolish. But those who receive and understand this message of the cross, that the cross is our salvation, and it's our salvation because Jesus hung upon the cross and died and took our punishment. Everything that we did wrong, he took that upon himself. He took our punishment so that we could be completely forgiven and given new life. Those who understand that message are raised up to a new level of life. A life that is contrary to the wisdom of this world. The message of the cross says, don't put yourself first. You'll miss out if you do. If you learn to deny yourself and empty yourself so that God can fill you up and empower you, then you'll begin to experience abundant life. Don't get yourselves over to the pleasures of the world because they will entrap you. They will addict you. Don't become a slave to the world and its pleasures, but rather learn to become a servant of God. The message of the cross says, it isn't your image that's important, but rather it's your character. And allow God to form and shape your character. The message of the cross says it's not okay to use people and abuse people and step on people to get ahead in this world, even though this world is full of competition. We are to lift people up and strengthen people. The message of the cross says money and status should not be your priority because they are the very things that draws you away from what's important. Your relationship with God and your relationship to people. Instead of doing it my way and going down the wrong path and messing up your life, do it God's way. That is the message of the cross. This is God's wisdom. This is the path to God's kingdom and to abundant life. 1 Corinthians 1:27 through 29. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. You know something? Not many of us here are celebrities. Not many of us here have political power. Not many of us are the captains of industry, yet God has chosen us to share this message of the cross. Little old you, little old me. God has chosen us. Let's be bold and proclaim this message of the cross. Amen. Let's turn to our final hymn, number 47. God will take care of you.